The advantage of using this indent print function or method, which populates string with specific characters, may be that sometimes you want to, instead of using tab, you can replace it by other characters, right? For instance, I could use like a dot, right? I could just use dot. If I just make that change and run it with this change, see how instead of printing tab, I'm printing a dot. And sometimes I print double dot. But I could modify that, and instead of printing a single dot, I can basically scale my indent level by 4, right? So if I say, if my indentation level is 4, I would like to have 4 dots. If it's 2, I would like to have 8 of them. So if I just multiply indent level by 4 in this loop, if I run this, you can see, oh, I did something. Oh yes, because it's yeah. Let me fix this. This is right here. That I'm saying array index out of bounds. Okay, so obviously what I need to do is allocate this much space as well, right? So allocate indent level times 4 to accommodate more characters if I need to create them, right? So there, right? So this is another version of it. So now instead of a tab, I'm printing a 4 dots, and this may be a better choice. I don't know. You make the decision. But I find this to be very useful when you're trying to create these types of outputs. Sometimes this is important when you debug your code. You could use this technique to create, not just log your information into a log file or log the information somehow otherwise, but maintain an indentation level and like make this look pretty, because it makes it easier to read, and those things can be very important. So just keep that in mind. Just wanted to show you this other little twist that you could add up to this if you wanted to. All right, so indent is perhaps a better choice than just a simple print line. Okay, because it gives you just more possibilities. All right, so I think we can now take a look at a few other slides in that presentation and eventually take a break. So this is our topic, displaying files in a directory. But what we just did, that we improved this code to by designing a recursive method named print directory, whatever we named it, right? So this was a visit directory, right? Visit directory in our case actually prints the content. The result of the visit is this content. So we improved this sample in this little improvement, the further development that we did. So we just touched the topic of file systems and files and directories. So perhaps now you realize that Java, being Java Virtual Machine, is trying to give you lots of options when you work not just with individual files. Originally we begin to think of files, but then we quickly realize that, wait a minute, where those files are located in the file system, and we begin to realize that it's very important to think about a practical directory structure which would satisfy the needs for our application if we decided to store and read data to and from a file. So therefore, Java gives you access to the directories. Generally speaking, if you're programming in C or C++, this is work with files or directories is not considered to be part of the standard C or C++ library, simply because because this is a system programming language. There is no barrier of virtual machine in those environments. So therefore, you have direct access to the the operating system, and you can use like POSIX, portable operating system interface, which is generally speaking available on all major operating systems, including Windows and Linux and Android, and you can use it to to find specific functions which would give you similar access to the attributes, to the directories and attributes. But there is no such facility as files and paths and file and path that we just discussed in this presentation, because Java provides this portable and very simple and I think very efficient way of working with the elements of the file system based on Java library. Don't expect that to find in your standard C or C++ library. Like I told you, you have to make a choice to use an operating system API, a native API, or maybe install, or maybe your compiler will give you access to the POSIX style calls, which you then can use to access the same information. So again, Java makes it real easy for you to get access to the metadata, the structure of the subdirectory, because it's all just another set of classes in your Java library. Now, this next topic here lists a few interesting things that input-output operations related to files can be associated with streams. So stream is just a sequence of characters expected to have a particular order, right? So if we're expecting a stream of characters from a keyboard, you can realize that, if I'm typing something on my keyboard, the expectation is that the computer is not going to treat these characters in a random order. It's going to store them in memory and then give them to me in the exact order as they've been typed, right? So order matters because it has the significance. So a stream-like data access presumes a particular order. So naturally in a file, right, when you write data into a file, you don't expect your system to store characters in a random order, right? You expect them to be stored and then loaded back in the exact order as they were originally somewhere in memory before those characters were stored in a file. So this is the notion of the stream, right? So you have a blob of data, but the way you access it by essentially processing it sequentially, which makes it stream-like processing. Okay, so speaking of files, generally speaking, if you need to work with the file, you need to open the file, you need to be able to close the file, and then in between of these two, okay, you do stream operations, which could be reading individual characters, reading a certain number of characters at a time, or sometimes you can work with a text file and ask your API library to read the content of the file line by line. Okay, so this is yet another popular access. In addition to streams, in Java library and of course in operating system API, which provides access to the file system. Of course, an alternative to this would be a random access file, which means you don't want to use a notion of the stream to restrict yourself to just sequential access to the data in a file. Instead, you want to jump to any location in the file, and that would be something we would refer to as random file access. Okay, so this is something for us today to discuss. Okay, so these are going to be our future topics, and we will do that after we discuss homework 6, homework assignment. I think we can finish this presentation after we talk about homework 6, because I'd like to talk more about streams and what streams look like in memory when you process them, right before we begin to talk about text file processing and API related to that. So let us take a break. We'll say 10-15 minute break, and after the break we're going to do homework 6 overview.